listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting. Broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
The X-Zone Radio and TV show is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio and TV show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, or employees.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, and for the next 4 hours, I am your host. I am your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X-Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, and the X-Zone comes to you Monday through Friday right here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, the Mutual Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, and in Europe on Radio X. If you'd like to send an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV, and our main radio website where you can find out what we've done in the past, over the past 25 years, what we're doing today, and what we'll be doing in the future at www.xzoneradio.com. My guest this hour is Christopher Stephen Jacobs. He is a medium, healer, remote viewer, alien abductee, and paranormal investigator from Lincoln, Nebraska. Now, although his childhood and adult life, he has experienced the full breadth of what the paranormal world has to offer him. His psychic abilities only increased after nearly his fatal car accident, fatal accident in 2009, when he took a trip to the other side. Nowadays, Christopher conducts reads and healings where he removes dangerous demonic attachments and various pieces of alien hardware. Joining me now is Christopher Stephen Jacobs. And Christopher, welcome to the X-Zone.
Thank you, Rob. It's nice to be here tonight.
And I am correct, you are in Lincoln, Nebraska, right?
Yes, I am.
Excellent. So, Christopher, how did you get started into the world of the paranormal?
Well, that's actually interesting. There are several events that actually took place with me when I was little. I was about 5 years old, and I had this interesting dream, at least I thought it was a dream at the time, that I had a dream of these beings that were sitting on the L tracks behind our house. I lived in Chicago as a child, so we had the L tracks behind the house. And I had these beings come to me in a dream and present themselves. They're all in white, and they were watching over me from a higher place. And that was one thing that that was my earliest known memory of anything paranormal.
Now, these visions, any idea what or why they chose you, or why you have been chosen to do everything that you do today?
You know, I try not to look at myself as someone who's been like anointed. You know, I tend to think that's more ego than anything else. But I do believe that, you know, per what my guides have told me, per what other people have said about me, that they feel I've been put on a mission on this world to help people using my abilities and my gifts. Yes.
To your recollection, when was your very first alien abduction experience?
Well, I would have to say when I was a teenager, and I was here in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I was going to, or coming home from the neighborhood pool, and it was only a couple blocks away from my house, and I started pedaling my bike towards the house. Then, without warning, I was clear across the neighborhood, and it was 3 hours later. And I remember getting grounded because I came home late, and I had no idea how I got clear across the neighborhood. Wow.
That would do it. Do you have any recollection of what happened to you during your abduction experience?
That particular experience, no, but I do recall other ones throughout my life where I remember being placed on a table and examined by the Greys on many different occasions. And not just them, there were reptilians present, and there were many other races present.
Christopher, stand by. You and I have to take our first break. Exonation, Christopher Stephen Jacobs is our guest. Christopher's website is christopherstephen8.wix.com/watch or speak. We'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And we're coming to you on the Mutual Broadcast Network, X Zone Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, and in Europe on Radio X. Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold. You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Wilda Wiecka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we will weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Wilda Wiecka, and the Science of Magic right here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Linnea Starr began to demonstrate a metaphysical connection to the spirit world as a little girl. Her family noticed the connection, but it was a great-grandmother who told the family that Linnea was indeed gifted. The great-grandmother, who was also gifted, felt that Linnea had indeed inherited these attributes. It has been noticed that oftentimes such things are passed down through the generations. Linnea was also born with a caul, a thin white membrane across a newborn's face. Legend has it that if the baby is born with this caul, the child will have second sight, or what we call psychic abilities. Linnea Starr does past, present, and future, and has the gift of prophecy. It is written within scriptures that if you are able to give factual information, and prophecies indeed come true, the gift indeed comes from the divine realm. Linnea Starr does large interactive groups as well as private gatherings. For more information on Linnea Starr or to contact Linnea for a one-on-one consultation, visit her website at www.linneastar.com. That's www.linneastar.com. Welcome back, everyone. Christopher Stephen Jacobs is our guest. His website is christopherstephen8.wix.com/watcher speak. And during just before we went to break, you were telling us about one of the alien abduction scenarios where there were the Greys and the reptilians. And I'm going to ask you the same question I asked before. Why you?
You know, that's a very good question. You know, I've asked that of myself, and some of my clients that I read have asked that very same question. And I came to find out that certain people have a certain energy about them, certain genome that these beings want, that best suit their needs. And I noticed they're very selective in that process.
So during your abduction experiences, do you have any recall besides the Greys and the reptilians being there? Do you remember anything about the transportation mode that they took you to their craft, what their craft looked like, what the communication was that they had with you, if any?
Yes, I remember there being several other races around, like some people report mantises. I remember several of them being around, the big mantid, human-sized bugs. And I do remember in one instance where I remember being taken later in life, there was a green light over me, and there was a little machine that showed up, probably no bigger than a grapefruit size. And they took that, and all of a sudden I was aboard a ship with many other people. Or at least I thought it was a ship, but it turned out to be a space station. And this is a place where they tend to bring people in abduction scenarios. Not always. There's another area they bring people to as well. But this particular instance, you could kind of feel just this jump from one place to another place. And from that point, it was a little foggier. but I do remember other races being about people watching procedures happening through open windows into a lab area, and it was actually pretty creepy.
How long do you estimate these abduction experiences lasted?
It's hard to say with some of these. I found out in some people's reads that I have done, I can trace missing time as well. And it turns out that some of these instances are for much longer periods than people think, because these aliens tend to be interdimensional, and they're in a different time skew. So these periods could be weeks, even years. This could happen, and people here wouldn't even realize. So they're put back the moment that they left, and they think maybe 3-4 hours have happened, where it could be 3 or 4 weeks or 3 or 4 months.
How has the paranormal and alien abduction affected your life and the lives of your loved ones?
Okay, this is it got to be where it was total chaos for a while. It caused fights with family members for a while. It was really hectic for a long time. We didn't really know what was going on completely. We just knew something abnormal was happening until I got more heightened at what I did, and that was because of the accident I was in. Since I went to the other side, I came back with more of a knowing on how to control the abilities I have, and I also gained the ability to remember more of certain experiences, and from that point, when we got more order out of chaos, we were able to control it a little better, and we were able to handle these situations much better.
Why were there fights within your family?
It was just random, seemingly random things. People attributed to demonic possessions and stuff like that, which is also true. But I came to find out that demonic instances are instances of Draco reptilians using their psychic influence and Greys using their psychic influence on people. So they were causing these situations to distract us away from what we were sent here to do. Whatever our life mission was, they didn't want us to do it.
All right, so where does the accident that you had fit into the big picture of things?
Okay, back in 2009, I was run over by a car in an intersection down in Tucson, Arizona, and I was hit by this person going 40 miles an hour. I was a pedestrian, and I lost consciousness when I hit the ground. And then I remember being on the other side with beings dressed in blue and white and gray robes, walking through forested areas, and I remember being there for quite some time. And then they eventually told me I had to come back to Earth, and in that time, only an hour or so had passed here.
So would this be a near-death experience?
Oh, yes, most definitely, because I remember seeing Jesus there. I remember seeing a couple other bearded figures and hoods there. So it was a very cool experience.
All right, let's talk about for a few moments about the Dracos and the Greys, how they manipulate us.
Okay, the Draco, they are the ones that have gone down in history as demons. The big horned, fiery-looking creatures of myth and legend. They are the demons that actually will cause people to be more violent and more aggressive towards one another. They'll spring fights out of nowhere and take the energy on. They want to absorb that negative energy, so they cause fights between people all the way up to whole world wars if they wanted to.
Why do they need our negative energy?
It's something they've become addicted to over a period of time, over the centuries. And I've noticed this when I've even had to conduct a healing on one of them. I tried to transmute their energy into something positive, just so that they weren't doing this to people anymore. And I came to find out that they've had this really bad addiction for a very, 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 very long time, that they just want to suck this dark energy out of people, and it's pleasurable to them. It's like an aphrodisiac.
So why would you want to, or how did the Dracos come to you for a healing? Like, isn't that rather strange and out of the norm?
It was actually not. They didn't necessarily come to me for that. They came to me to be oppressive, and I turned it around and sent healing energy their way.
All right.
And it was a very strange situation where I was in the middle of a channeling. I do a lot of automatic writing, and one of these beings came to me and attempted to throw me off, and I used what was known as the law of one on them, basically telling them, you are no different than me, I am no different than you, we are equals, we are brothers, you affect me, I affect you, vice versa. And eventually this being and I came to an understanding, and it ended up causing a cascade effect between other Draconians, and they all kind of laid down their negative ways and parted from that way of doing things.
Besides being a channel and working in the paranormal, what else were you trained to do, or what was it that you wanted to be your job, your profession, your dreams, your aspirations?
Well, earlier on when I was a child, I'd always been drawn to working with animals and working like oceanography, veterinary type stuff. If the stuff with the aliens had not occurred, I probably would have gotten into that field.
So, have you always been working as a channel? Have you always been working within the realm of the paranormal?
Yes, always to some degree within my lifetime. I've always been working with it. I've encountered ghosts of many kinds. I've encountered interdimensional beings of many kinds. And when I was little, I didn't know what I was looking at. But now that I've encountered it more, I know what to do when I get into these situations. I know what to say to some of these beings. I know what to say to others when they've encountered these beings as well.
Are you the only person in your family who has the aptitude to communicate with those on the other side, as well as see ghosts and communicate with greys and draconians and other species of the ET family, or does this run in your family?
On my mother's side of the family, it does. My great-grandmother had this ability, my mother has this ability, and I have this ability.
So help me to understand, did you hold any other profession? Did you do any other jobs? And if so, how did your tenure within the paranormal affect the jobs?
Well, I just did little day-to-day, 9-to-5 jobs. I worked in retail for a long time. I worked as in janitorial, construction, landscaping, jobs of all of that. And did it affect my job? Yes, because I always saw things that were around people. Other entities would come in and try to mess with my relationship with me and my bosses. I even have gotten fired over this before. These like draconians and demon entities would come in and disrupt those relationships.
How does your relationship with draconians and other extraterrestrials affect your social life?
Quite greatly, actually, because my social life tends to be almost nil, except if I'm with other people of like beliefs. I try not to do that. I want to be able to interact with everybody and find common ground with everybody. But there's just some people that they just give you this look with this blank stare when you bring up this particular subject, and you just can't get anywhere with some people.
How often are you in contact with the Greys and the Draconians and other members of the extraterrestrial family?
Quite often. The Greys I tend to try to avoid a little bit. The Draconians too, a little bit. But I tend to talk to races of all kinds, like the Syrian star beings, the Pleiadians, and the like. I talk to them at least once every couple evenings.
So what do they want you to do? Why, they must be making contact with you for some reason or other. What's that reason?
Some want me to go out into public and give their messages. Other ones, like the Pleiadians, want me to help out with, like, say, free energy concerns. There's been a couple of them that wanted me to help bring about free energy for mankind, and the list goes on what some of these beings want me to do.
So what is the message? You told us what the message is from the Pleiadians about the free energy, but what is the message from the other ETs?
Well, with the Syrians, their message is basically they want us to just get along. The same thing with the Pleiadians. The Syrians are extremely loving. They're very hyper advanced beings. If I could describe, what they look like, they're blue-skinned and they have pointed ears like Spock from Star Trek. They are very, they want to see no war on this planet. The Pleiadians are the same way, but both these sets of beings go about different methodologies. They have, the Pleiadians want to bring about through science, and the Sirians are more along the spiritual lines.
Gotcha. Christopher, stand by. You and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Exonation, Christopher Stephen Jacobs is our guest. His website is christopherstephen8.wix.com/watcherspeak. And we'll both be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. Don't go away.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Thomas Jefferson was a Burgess of 27 when he met Martha Wales Skelton, a 22-year-old widowed heiress who was fondly called Patty by her family. They were married on January the 1st, 1772, and they took up residence in a cabin on the building site on top of a Virginia mountain that Thomas had named Monticello. As Thomas and Patty slowly built their first version of the great house at Monticello, the Revolutionary War was heating up. Patty, with difficulty, bore 5 children, but only 2 girls survived. Thomas's political career developed to the point where he was often away from home, but after he authored and signed the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia, he resolved never again to leave his wife. He was elected the governor of Virginia, just as that state became the Revolution's last battleground. The Revolutionary War ended in 1781, and Thomas gladly retired altogether to my family, my farm, and my books. But Patty continued to want to bear her treasured husband a son, and late in the summer of 1782, she died of kidney failure at the age of 33, 4 months after having borne yet another girl. Thomas was so devastated by her death that he never remarried. He mourned her for the rest of his life, even as he helped to frame the peace in France and then became the first Secretary of State, the second Vice President, and the third President of the United States. This story is true. Thomas Jefferson was such an obsessive letter writer and record keeper that we know where he was and what he was doing nearly every day of his adult life. Every significant thing he says in My Thomas comes from his contemporary writings. My Thomas by Roberta Grimes is now available at Barnes & Noble, Costco, Target, Books A Million, Hudson Booksellers, Kmart, Walmart, Sam's Club, Walgreens, CVS, and online at Amazon.com. You can visit Roberta Grimes online at www.robertagrimes.com.
The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State certified occupational school training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com.
Unwilling to be the government's deadly assassin, gifted psychic Kahara Mitchell went AWOL and ended up buried under rubble in the wake of a great tsunami. She regained consciousness far from Earth on the medical ship of a Daguerrean intergalactic fleet. Has she been rescued or abducted by aliens? The Chalice of Carrie, Kahira O'Donnell's latest paranormal science fiction romance, is the passionate story of an Earth woman and her destined mates, twin kings from another galaxy. Kahara uses her gifts fighting alongside Lords Rom and Ra in a war that will determine the destiny of galaxies. The Chalice of Carrie by Kahira O'Donnell is now available at KahiraO'Donnell.com or at Amazon.com. You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. What happened in Benghazi is revealed by Nicholas Genix, author of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. He informs the American people that President Obama deceived them by advocating a strong foreign policy prior to the 2012 presidential election, and Hillary Clinton supported this deception. As the title infers, there is a connection between Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. Ample evidence informs Americans that Obama's early indoctrination in the Quran developed an affinity for Islam, why the Quran is the source of discontent in many countries, and why the Obama foreign policy deception led to poor military action and caused the loss of American lives in Benghazi. Genix provides 36 questions for the Select Committee on Benghazi to validate if Americans are justified to mistrust President Obama and Hillary Clinton. An overview of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi is presented on the website www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Annie Callahan, dedicated to negotiating a position for Earth within the Daguerrean Coalition, had trained for 3 years to become an Earth ambassador. Yet, the very eve of her arrival at the capital ruling planet, she is claimed as destined mate to an oversized, mating-maddened vamp who swears he will never release her. Lord Aztaran, king of the Macian sector, has waited over 900 years for his destined mate. Having found her as an alpha vamp, he is unable to relinquish Annie, virtually holding her hostage until he can claim her. Yet Macians cannot survive without their mate's love. How could he strip her of her citizenship, her ambassadorship, and her freedom and expect to win her heart? With All That I Am by Kahira O'Donnell is the latest book in this exciting series, The Daguerrean Chronicles, guaranteed to keep readers coming back for more. With All That I Am by Kahira O'Donnell is available on Amazon.com and KahiraO'Donnell.com. Christopher Stephen Jacobs is our guest explanation. The website is christopherstephen8.wix.com/watcherspeak. Christopher, why don't these extraterrestrials just make themselves known to one and all instead of causing the misunderstanding or the lack of knowledge or the chaos that they seem to be causing by only appearing to a few and not to the masses. And then you have the few who are trying to convince the masses that they're real, and because they don't make themselves known to the masses don't believe they're real.
Oh, yes, I've asked this very same question, and they've told me under no certain terms that they've attempted this on several occasions in history, and either they've been worshipped as gods, or they've been seen as celebrities, or they've been seen as demons. So they want to be able to slowly integrate their way into mankind. They've even told me they've taken up positions, leadership positions on the planet. They've told me they've integrated themselves in as teachers, people that you encounter on the streets, so people that would encounter them would be a little more at ease with them when it's all revealed. But they told me that they're trying a slow integration process this time, so people don't panic or start a war, start shooting at them, and the like.
But wouldn't it be just as easy for them to just make a landing in front of the White House on Parliament Hill in Canada, Buckingham Palace, Red Square, the Eiffel Tower in France, or wherever, and just have it done and over with?
Oh, yes, I completely agree with you on that, but I also came to find out there is a secret society on this planet. Everybody knows them as the Illuminati. I call them the Cabal. Mm-hmm. But I came to find out that this is another reason that they're not landing, is because this particular organization has told them that they would shoot at them, that they would hurt people, they would attempt to keep their power at all costs. And these beings are very pacifistic, and they don't want anybody hurt as a result of people here that just want to have power at all costs.
Would it be safe to assume that these visitors, extraterrestrials, these aliens are much more advanced technologically as well as sociologically than we are?
Oh, most definitely. Their technology seems almost like magic to people, and it has in history. It's very mystical in nature. And I did ask them, I said they could very easily come down here and have control immediately, and they could free us from all of these systems we have. And their response was, but what good would that do for your kind? You have to free your own bonds and free yourself from your own chains, and then you learn more from the process, and then the knowledge that they would give would be more of a reward for passing that test, as it were.
With that attitude, how do we know they don't have some nefarious plan that they're waiting for us to fail so that they can take over?
A part of me had thought that as well, but a lot of these beings that I encounter are very, very benevolent. Some of these, a lot of them even look human, like the Pleiadians, for instance. They're just more in shape humans. They're Nordics, as people call them. And I've asked them, and they said they do have bad amongst their kind. They have had in history where some of their kind have caused wars in space and the like. And it's just not all of them. You can't really judge their entire species based on a few. Just like with us, you can't judge us based on a few idiots.
But if they are more technically and technologically advanced than we are, why would they fear the cabal? Because if they're that advanced, shouldn't they be able to protect themselves without harming anyone?
Oh, of course, but also I've heard of cases, especially when the Pleiadians are involved, that some of their own people have been captured by the cabal. The cabal has access to technology that they barely understand themselves, but they do know what it can destroy. And they know that it can hurt people here on the surface. It's like somebody holding somebody else hostage. And these beings just don't want anyone to get harmed, anybody at all, to get harmed out of the deal. So they don't want to rush things.
How do we know?
I used to hate that methodology, but I began to understand it in recent days.
So how do we know the cabal really does have all this stuff, and that they're as nefarious as people would like us to think? How do we know that the New World Order is really there? How do we know it's just not all hype?
I had thought the same thing myself. I figured it was all, alien storytelling. But in this instance, I know from what some of these other races have told me that they said the Cabal is not in total and complete control. They used to be, but not now. They did say it is a real organization with real hostile intent, but their hostility is limited to their capability, and they do have advanced technology, but they're just not willing to share it with anybody. So eventually they're going to have to when the aliens do show up in person.
Besides getting this information from aliens, have you seen any proof yourself, physical evidence, that what they are telling you is real?
Oh, yes, in two different ways, actually. Since I do work with the paranormal, I do recordings like EVPs and the like.
Okay.
And I've gotten recordings from beings that said they're from Agartha, for instance, the inner Earth. I've gotten recordings from beings that say they're from different dimensions, different planets. And I've also gotten physical proof because my mother had an implant that actually came out of the bridge of her nose. And I saved this implant, and it looks kind of almost like a leaf in a way, the tip of a leaf. And this thing, I had to put it in the freezer because this thing actually had an energy to it. This thing could set off equipment. So I had to put it in the freezer, and then it stopped doing that after a while.
And have you had this implant investigated by members of the scientific community?
No, because
Why?
I've been told by other people that have done that they never get the object back. It always seems to disappear somewhere. Somebody always comes to confiscate the object. So no, I have not yet.
So how do we know you indeed, in fact, have this implant and that it can do everything that you said it can do?
Well, that's true. People have a right to be skeptical. I would be skeptical if somebody said they had this, but I personally can assure you that it is legit. I witnessed this firsthand, with my mother and I. At some point I will be willing to have this tested, so long as I get it back.
Have you brought this to the attention of any credible media source, and have the media follow it so it cannot be mysteriously taken and disappear?
No, I did put talk about it on another radio show that I was on several months back when it actually happened, and I found out from other people, some people have had this same thing happen where they've had something come out of their sinus cavity or their nose or something like that, and it was very similar to the description I gave of mine.
Okay, but like I asked you, have you thought of going to one of the mainstream media? I'm not talking about a pseudo media outlet. I'm talking about a legitimate media outlet that could actually follow the track of this implant to a scientist who could actually verify or explain what it might be.
Well, of course, I have actually seriously considered that. I would be very curious as to what they would have to say as to what it actually is, even though I know, using my abilities, what it is. I would like nothing more than to have mainstream science proof.
Okay, you say that you remove invading entities from clients, without using traditional exorcism methods. So are these entities spirits or are they aliens? And whether they're spirits or aliens, how do you exorcise them?
Okay, this is what I run into with a lot of my clients. I have the ability to look into people's energy core, and the human energy core is supposed to be blue and white, very sky blue color. And I see, when I look into the energy core and I see a black shadow in there, I know there is an entity. Now, these can vary from energy to psychic impressions of, say, draconians or greys. Now, these entities, what I do to remove them with as little stress to the person as possible is I do what is known as bilocation when I'm doing this over Skype or a phone. And I look at the person's core, I reach in and I grab the entity and I hand it off to a guide that is one of their guides that's nearby or one of mine, and they get rid of the entity for me. And what I do is I just reach in with my mind and pull the entity out. And people have told me that they have felt this transition where something's exiting, say, their solar plexus or their chest cavity or their third eye chakra at the top of their head or crown. They have felt to this effect when they've done this.
But how many of these people who feel an effect are actually just experiencing a placebo effect?
I've had skeptics ask me this. I had a skeptic that interviewed me one time, asked me this same thing, and he wanted me to do this to him because he felt a little off. He wanted me to prove this to him. And I said, okay, I'm looking into your core, and I can see an attachment within your chest cavity and one at the base of your spine, and I'll remove these right now. Well, I began to do this, and he felt like his energy was skyrocketing, like it was going way above and beyond where it had been prior. And then from that point on, I had his attention. He didn't completely believe it at first, but then when I did it to him, he was more apt to believe it.
All right, but I'm going to ask you the same question again. How many times that this has been done by yourself, that it is just a placebo effect or a psychosomatic reaction to somebody who believes that they are possessed in one way or another, whether it be by a spirit, a negative entity, or an extraterrestrial. And by them talking to you, you believing them, and you telling them that you're getting rid of whatever this source is, whether it's imaginary or not. Just the fact that you're listening, that you say you're doing something, that this, in their mind, alleviates the problem, thus being a psychosomatic or a placebo effect.
Oh, yes, I have no doubt with some people that does happen. But in cases where people say they believe they are being affected,
right.
In most cases I've run across, I do find something of some sort. But with there are few that feel that they have been oppressed by something and there is nothing there. And I do everything I can to alleviate that. Now, I don't doubt that there are a few that it is just a placebo effect. That does happen, yes.
Can people create their own negative black energy within their bodies?
Oh, most definitely. I found something I thought was an attachment one time, and this was conjured by the person themselves. It was their own shadow aspect, I call it. And I helped them deal with whatever problems was causing that particular shadow aspect, and it did dissipate after a while.
Now, what are what you call backstage and the stage?
Okay, this has to do with alien abduction itself. And I came to find out by resurrecting my own abduction memories that I thought it was peculiar that there was this big time differential, like what I explained earlier. And I just thought this was really strange. I'm thinking other people were saying, they were gone out into space for 20 years or more, but yet they were returned to the exact moment in time in which they left. And I thought this was very odd. So I looked into this. And there are certain spots on the globe that are cordoned off for alien abduction. This has to do with the moon as well. And there's the life we live here, which I call the stage. And I nicknamed that after how Shakespeare said all the world's a stage. Yeah. And I nicknamed it after that because think of it like a movie set, or kind of like The Truman Show, for instance, the movie The Truman Show, where you're playing a part you don't realize you're playing a part. But when, say, the aliens take you, they take you to an area that is outside the what some people call the grand illusion, the grand hologram, or I call it the stage. And they take them to this other area where they've lived an entire life as, say, working with these beings, against these beings, what have you. And when they re-enter the illusion bubble or the stage, their memories go away and they go back to their life like nothing happened.
Now, you also deal with, I believe, hauntings, haunted homes, and negative entities within a house. And how do you exercise ghosts, goblins, spirits? Any different from how you would clear a person of the black shadow that you see in them, or the alien entity within them?
I do something very similar when I'm clearing a house. Now, what I do is I will write certain what I call catalysts in the beginning. Other people call them spells.
Right.
I write these things in a poetic way in order to, or like a prayer to clear a place, and I visualize. Like I created one called the Vortex Catalyst, and I go in there and I clear a house of anything that is affecting the humans within that house, and I see a vortex carrying them up and carrying them to the other side. And I clear places like that. I also, in my mind, I will quarantine a house just in case there's something really nasty there. I'll visualize a cage around the house so that I can have a guide come in there and take care of a particular nasty being like a demon, so that these people are free of that oppression.
I've got about a minute before I go to my final break, but I have to ask you this. We've talked about a lot of negative stuff. Is there anything positive? For example, what about angels? Are they real?
Oh, of course. Even though a lot of the depictions of angels would be the Anunnaki, the hyper-advanced alien race, I have come across many energy beings that are very angelic, very light-filled. I ran across a set of beings called Renyard, and they called themselves the Wisps as well, and they're very positive, very angelic, and very loving towards people. I've worked with them quite a bit.
You and I have to take our final break, Christopher, so please stand by. Exonation. Our guest this hour is Christopher Stephen Jacobs. His website is christopherstephen8.wix.com/watcherspeak. And we've been talking about extraterrestrials. We've been talking about spirits. We've been talking about cleansings. We've been talking about draconians who are the evil or demonic entities. We've been talking about outer space. We've been talking about alien abductions and much more. I'll be back on the other side as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And don't forget, X Zone Nation, I love getting your emails. Xzone at xzoneradiotv.com or xzoneradio.com. Christopher and I return on the other side. So whatever you do, don't go away. We'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. If you enjoy reading a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love From Out of the Woodwork by William S. Peckham.
Sean Kennedy, a Toronto contractor, buys derelict houses, guts them, and turns them into multi-family dwellings. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, a century house in ruins, and starts the renovation, the house fights back. He is visited by ghosts of owners past. His visions are triggered by touching an oak mantle, reading a faded letter, opening an old locket, or opening a brand new casket in the basement. These visions will take you on a trip across southern Ontario from Niagara Falls to Toronto to Kingston. From Out of the Woodwork is now available in paperback and on your favorite electronic reader. To order your copy of From Out of the Woodwork, go to www.williamspeckham.com. That's www.williamspeckham.com. Explanation, Christopher Stephen Jacobs is our guest. His website is christopherstephen8.wix.com/watcherspeak. Christopher, how can you help people out there who may have problems and may be seeking someone to give them a hand who is a little bit unconventional? Can they contact you, and do you work over the internet?
Oh, yes, of course. I work over Skype. They can contact me by my email. My email is christopherstephenjacobs@gmail.com. And my Facebook is facebook.com/christopher.s.jacobs. And that goes the same for my Skype.
Listen, how do you deal with skepticism? Because I'm sure with the topics that you cover and that you work with, you must get ridicule at sometimes. And how do you handle it?
I used to handle it a lot rougher than I do now. When I was a lot younger, I used to not hate's too strong of a word. I used to dislike skeptics. We didn't mesh. But then I came to realize as I got older, even though I got ridiculed by these people and other people that were afraid of these subjects, just to let them be as they are, not try to push what I know onto them, no matter if I'm trying to prove it or not. It comes about when it's supposed to. Even with skeptics, even as hardcore as some of them can be,
sure.
I let them do as they intend to do, and not try to change them in any way, shape, or form. And it usually changes them in some way to where they are a little more accepting sometime down the road.
What are your final thoughts for the listening audience of the Exo Nation tonight?
Well, if anybody is going through these experiences like alien abduction, ghosts, anything paranormal, heck, even people that see Sasquatches, beings of that nature, interdimensional beings, you're not crazy. People may tell you you're crazy. You may even have been ridiculed like I was. Just to let it roll off of you. You're not crazy of any sort. You're actually not necessarily ahead of the curve, so to speak. You just have a set of abilities that these other people don't, or you notice the things that these other people do not.
Why do you think the paranormal is so popular these days?
I believe it's because the energy is changing. I've been told by my guides that we're going into a different energy shift, and people are becoming more aware of the environment and the energy around them, and this interest is gaining because of this fact.
So it has nothing to do with the amount of media attention that the paranormal is getting, the amount of accessibility on the internet. You really do believe that this is the time, and this is why why it's so popular.
Yes, this is why it's being seen in the media more and more. I believe it's the energy that's changing, that's bringing a lot of these networks, per se, letting them display this particular subject more and more. And there are more people coming out of the closet, so to speak, when it comes to the paranormal. They know that they're not going to be ridiculed as much as they were.
Christopher, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a great pleasure talking to you, and look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Yes, thank you, Rob. It was good being on tonight.
All right, you take care of yourself now, Christopher.
All right, you too.
So long now. Exonation Christopher Stephen Jacobs has been my guest this hour. His website is christopherstephen8.wix.com/watch or speak. Aliens, Draconians, Pleiadians, Greys, alien abduction, near-death experience, healings, and much more. Send me your thoughts, X-Zone at xzoneradiotv.com. I'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.